Precious flung the hot tea directly into Adana's face. Not by accident, not in a rush. She looked her in the eyes first, then poured. Adana stood there, blinking, the liquid burning down her cheek and dripping off her chin onto the kitchen floor she had just mopped 20 minutes ago. She did not scream. She did not move. She had learned in 14 months inside this house that any reaction she gave would be used against her. "You served it cold," Precious set the cup down with a sharp click. "Do it again." Adana turned to the kettle. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the effort of keeping herself contained. She could feel the skin on her left cheek going red and tight. She filled the cup again. She placed it on the saucer. She carried it back to Precious with both hands, the way Madam Chidima had taught her, head slightly bowed, eyes down, as if gratitude for this job required her to make herself smaller every single day. Precious didn't even look at her this time. She was already on her phone, laughing at something. If you are new here, please subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the rest of this story. Adana was 19 years old. She had arrived in Lagos with one bag, one pair of good shoes, and the kind of hope that only someone who has never seen the city carries. Her grandmother Lolo had pressed her hands between both of hers at the motor park and said, "Send me word when you reach, and Adana, do not let them swallow you." She had not understood what that meant then. She understood now. Her day began at 4:45 every morning. Before sunrise, before the birds, she swept the compound, mopped the entire downstairs, boiled water, set the breakfast table, pressed Chief Oluwasewun's shirts, polished his shoes, made Madam Chidima's tea at exactly the right temperature, not cold, never cold, and had Precious's bathroom scrubbed before the girl woke at 9. If any single thing was out of order, she heard about it in a way that left marks. Not always physical marks, sometimes just the kind of words that stay in a person's chest and rot there quietly. At mealtimes, the family sat at the long dining table in the center of the house. Jollof rice steaming, fried plantain golden and sweet, cold juice sweating in tall glasses. Adana served every plate. Then she returned to the kitchen and ate whatever was left over, standing at the sink because there was no chair for her. Cold food in a chipped bowl that was hers alone because Madam Chidima did not want the house plates contaminated. That was the word she had used once, contaminated. Adana had swallowed that word with her cold food and kept moving. That evening, while she was hand-washing Precious's clothes in the backyard, on her knees, the concrete digging into her skin, she heard her name called from inside the house. Not her name exactly. Madam Chidima never used her name. She called her Girl. "Girl, come in here now." Adana dried her hands on her uniform and walked inside. Madam Chidima was standing in the parlor with her arms crossed, a ceramic cup in pieces on the floor. "You cracked my good cup, the one from Abuja." Adana looked at the pieces. She had not touched that cup today. She had not been near the display shelf, but she also knew what happened when she said so. "I'm sorry, ma." "Sorry," Chidima laughed, a short, ugly sound. "You will work for free this month, and if you break one more thing in my house, I will send you back to wherever it is you came from with nothing. You hear me? Nothing." "Yes, ma." She was docked a month's pay for a cup she didn't break. That night, lying on her thin mat in the back room, Adana pulled out the letter from Grandma Lolo that had arrived 4 days ago. She had read it so many times the fold lines were going soft. Lolo's handwriting was large and uneven. She had only gone to primary school, but every word was precise. "My Adana, the cough has come back. The clinic says I need the medication for 3 months. I do not want to worry you, but I have no one else to tell." Adana pressed the letter to her chest. She had sent her last money 2 weeks ago. There was nothing left to send, and now she had no pay coming this month. She thought about calling Lolo, but the network in the village was unreliable, and the call would drop 3 times before it connected, and Lolo would panic trying to call back and not be able to, and Adana would lie awake worse than before. So she folded the letter back up, tucked it under the mat, and closed her eyes. She thought, as she always did before sleep, of the memory that kept her alive in this place. She was 8 years old. Lolo had made a small pot of soup, just enough, and served Adana first, the biggest portion, the best piece of meat. Adana said, "Grandma, you eat too." And Lolo smiled and said, "I eat when I know you have eaten. You go first, my own. Always you first." She had not understood it as love then. She understood it as the purest form of it she had ever witnessed. A woman with little, giving what she had so her child would never feel like she was last. In this house, Adana was always last. She did not know yet that something was about to change everything. She did not know that the old woman upstairs, Mama Nkechi, Chief Oluwasemu's mother, who was fading quietly in the room at the end of the corridor, had been watching her for weeks with eyes that recognized something no one else in that house could see. She did not know that Grandma Lolo was already on a bus to Lagos. She did not know that her whole life was sitting on the edge of the truth, ready to fall open. She just turned off the small torch, pulled the thin blanket to her chin, and tried to sleep. Comment below, where are you watching from? Let's see how far this story has reached. The knock at the gate came on a Tuesday morning. Adana was on her knees scrubbing the front steps when she heard it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, the kind that did not apologize for themselves. The gateman, Emeke, shuffled out and peered through the small opening. Then he turned back toward the house with an uncertain look on his face. "There's an old woman outside. She says she's family." Madam Chidima appeared at the door with her silk robe, coffee in hand, the permanent crease of displeasure already forming between her brows. "Family of who?" Emeke hesitated. "She says, family of the girl." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Chidima set her coffee down slowly. She walked to the gate herself, which she never did, and pulled it open just wide enough to look. Grandma Lolo stood on the other side in a faded Ankara wrapper, a small raffia bag hanging from one arm, her back completely straight. Her eyes were clear and steady. "Good morning. I have come to see my granddaughter." Chidima looked at her the way she looked at things she considered beneath the standard of her household, a long, slow look designed to diminish. "This is not a family house. We do not receive village visitors here. Whatever you need, you can handle it with her on her day off, which she does not have this month." Lolo did not blink. "I did not come for her day off. I came because something told me to come. When a grandmother feels that pull, she does not ignore it." "I don't care what you feel." Chidima's voice dropped to the quiet register she used when she wanted to be truly cruel. "Take your bag and your feelings back to wherever it is you came from. Do not come to my gate again." She began to close the gate. "Adana!" Lolo's voice came over the wall, not shouting but carrying, the way a voice carries when it has been calling someone's name with love for 19 years. "Adana, I see you. I have always seen you. Hold on, my child. Your time is coming. Do you hear me? Your time is coming." The gate shut with a heavy clang. Chidima walked past Adana without looking at her. "If that woman comes to my gate again, you both are leaving. Get back to work." Adana turned back to the steps. She picked up the scrubbing brush. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold it. She scrubbed anyway. She scrubbed until the shaking stopped, and what was left was just a quiet, burning determination she had no name for yet. What she did not know was that Lolo had not gone back to the bus park. She had walked to the end of the street and sat on a low wall in the shade and was waiting. She had not come this far to leave. 3 days passed. On the 4th night, Mama Nkechi called Adana. It happened sometimes. The old woman would press the small bell on her bedside table and Adana would go up to bring water or to help her turn in bed or simply to sit because the nights were long and Mama Nkechi did not want to spend them alone. The rest of the family found her age inconvenient. Chief was always busy. Madam Chidima visited once a week with the performance of a dutiful wife. Precious had been upstairs exactly twice since Adana arrived. But Adana came whenever the bell rang. She would sit by the bed, and sometimes they talked, and sometimes they didn't. And either way, it was the most human Adana felt inside that house. That night, Mama Nkechi was sitting up. That alone was unusual. She rarely had the strength. Her eyes were brighter than normal, like a candle sometimes flares just before it goes out. She patted the edge of the bed, and Adana sat. The old woman took her face in both hands. Her palms were dry and warm. She turned Adana's face slowly left, then right,
then held it still and looked at her for a long time without speaking. Adana let her look. There was nothing frightening about it. It felt, strangely, like being seen for the first time. "You have her nose," Mama Nkechi whispered. Exact same nose. "Ma? And the way you hold your hands when you are standing still." She used to do that. Cross them just below the waist, like you are waiting for something, like you always knew something was going to come. Adana didn't know who she was talking about. She opened her mouth to ask, and Mama Nkechi shook her head slowly. "Not tonight. Tonight, I need my son. Go and call Sheun for me. Tell him his mother needs him now. Not tomorrow, now." There was something in her voice that made Adana move without asking questions. She went downstairs, knocked on the study door, and told Chief Oluwaseun that his mother was asking for him urgently. He looked up from his desk, a big, quiet man with a face that had been handsome once and now just tired. And something in Adana's expression made him stand up immediately. They went upstairs together. Mama Nkechi looked at both of them standing in the doorway, and she said, "Close the door, and Sheun, sit down. What I am about to tell you, I should have told you 20 years ago. The fact that I did not is my sin to carry, but I am leaving soon and I will not carry it to God." Chief sat on the chair by the window. Adana stood near the door, unsure if she should leave. "Stay," Mama Nkechi told her. "This concerns you most of all." The room went very quiet. "Before Chidima," Mama Nkechi began, "you loved a woman named Bisi. Do you remember her?" Chief's jaw tightened. "Mama, do you remember her?" "Yes," his voice was rough. "I remember her. Bisi was pregnant when she went into the hospital. You know what they told you? That she died, that the baby girl did not survive." She paused. Her breathing was slow and careful. "Sheun, they lied to you. Bisi did not die in that delivery room, and the baby girl did not die either." The silence that followed was the kind that changes the shape of a room. Chidima paid the nurse. She paid the midwife. She told them what to say and what to do. Bisi was separated from her baby and told the child was gone. She left that hospital broken, believing her daughter was dead. She never recovered from it. She died years later, still believing. Mama Nkechi's voice did not waver. It was the voice of a woman who had rehearsed this confession for years and was finally, at the very end, setting it down. The baby was given to a woman in the East, an old woman named Lolo. Money was paid, silence was bought. Chief Oluwaseun stood up slowly. His chair scraped back. He turned to look at Adana. She had not moved. She was standing with her hands crossed just below her waist, the way she always stood when she was waiting for something, and her face had gone completely still. "Adana," he said. Her name in his mouth sounded different from how anyone in this house had ever said it. Like it mattered, like it was the beginning of something, not the end. She looked at him. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. He crossed the room in 4 steps and stood in front of her, this big, tired man, and he looked at her face the way his mother had, slowly, completely, and whatever he saw there made his eyes fill in a way that 20 years of hard life had not managed to do. "You are mine," his voice broke on the last word. "You are my daughter." He pulled her into his arms before she could respond and held her the way fathers hold children they have lost and found in the same breath. Fiercely, desperately, like he was making up for every cold morning and every burnt cheek and every meal she had eaten alone standing at a sink. And Adana, who had not cried once in 14 months inside that house, finally broke. She sobbed into his chest like a child, like the child she had always been and no one had ever let her be. Mama Nkechi watched them from the bed. Her eyes closed slowly. Her hands relaxed on the blanket. She had done the last thing she needed to do. Mama Nkechi passed before morning came. She went quietly, the way she had lived her final months, without fuss, without drama, her breathing just growing slower and slower until it stopped. Adana was holding her hand when it happened. She felt the exact moment the grip loosened and did not let go for a long time after. Chief Oluwaseun sat in the corridor outside the room for 2 hours. He did not cry. He just sat with his hands on his knees and stared at the floor like a man going through every year of his life and locating every moment where he should have asked a different question. Then he stood up, straightened his agbada, and walked downstairs. He told Adana to come with him. She followed him into the main sitting room, the one with the good sofas and the large television and the family photographs on the wall. Photographs she had dusted every week without appearing in a single one. Chief sat in his chair at the head of the room. He told the gateman to call Madame Chidima and Precious down immediately. Chidima appeared first, wrapper tied hastily, her face arranged into the expression she wore when she was preparing to manage a situation. Precious came behind her in an oversized t-shirt, phone in hand, already irritated by being woken. "Sheun, what is this? Your mother just passed. We should be..." "Sit down, Chidima." She sat. Something in his voice made her sit without finishing the sentence. Chief looked at his wife for a long time. He looked at her the way a man looks at something he had believed in for years and is only now seeing clearly for the first time. "I want to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer me. Not because I need you to tell me the truth. I already have the truth. But because what you say in the next few minutes will determine what kind of woman you leave this room as." Chidima's eyes flicked to Adana standing near the doorway. Something moved across her face, fast like a shadow. Then it was gone. 20 years ago, Bisi, the hospital, the baby. The silence that followed was enormous. Chidima stood up, opened her mouth, closed it. Then she did what Adana had watched her do 100 times in small moments. She chose performance over truth. "I don't know what your mother told you, but she was a sick old woman, Sheun. Her mind was the clearest it has been in years." His voice did not rise. That was the most frightening thing about it. "She told me everything. The nurse, the midwife, the payment, the arrangement with Lolo. Everything, Chidima. Every single detail." Precious looked at her mother. "Mommy, what is he talking about?" Chidima said nothing. "I will tell you what he's talking about," Chief said. And now he looked at his daughter by Chidima, with something that was not anger but was close to grief. "The girl you have been pouring hot tea on. The girl you have been making eat cold food standing at the sink. The girl whose pay your mother docked for a cup she never broke." He paused. "She is your sister." Precious laughed, a short disbelieving sound. Then she looked at Adana, then back at her father. The laugh died. "Her mother was the woman I loved before yours." Chidima had them separated at birth and paid people to lie to me for 20 years, while my daughter, my firstborn, grew up in a village with a woman who was not her blood, walking in this house like a stranger, eating last every single day. The silence that followed was enormous. Chidima stood up. You cannot believe the ramblings of a woman who... Sit down. It was the first time he had raised his voice. It landed in the room like something physical. Chidima sat back down. Precious flinched. Even Adana took a small step backward. Chief stood up and walked to where Adana was standing in the doorway. He turned her gently to face the room. She felt his hand on her shoulder, steady, protective, the way she had imagined a father's hand might feel. On every night she had cried into a thin pillow in a back room in this same house. "This is my daughter," he said. "Her name is Adana Oluwaseun Adeyemi, and from this night she will be treated as such in every room of this house by everyone." Precious looked at Adana with an expression that was shifting, the cruelty draining out of it slowly, replaced by something younger and more uncertain, something that looked, underneath everything, like shame. Chidima looked at her hands in her lap. "You will leave this house," Chief told her quietly. "I will not throw you into the street. The arrangements will be made properly and fairly. But this marriage ended 20 years ago when you chose to do what you did. I just did not know it yet." Chidima finally looked up. For one moment, all the performance fell away, and what was underneath was just fear. A woman who had built her entire life on a lie and had always known, somewhere beneath the silk robes and the sharp words and the cruelty she handed down to her daughter like inheritance, that this moment was coming. She stood, looked at Adana once, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time, said nothing, and walked upstairs. Precious did not follow her mother immediately. She stood in the middle of the room and looked at Adana with her phone hanging loose in her hand. Her voice, when it came, was small in a way Adana had never heard from her before. "The tea, your face, She stopped, started again. "I didn't know." "I know," Adana said softly. It was not forgiveness, not yet, but it was a door left slightly open, and that was enough for now. Chief Oluwaseun sent Emeka, the gateman, to the end of the street. Lolo was still there. She had been there for 3 days, sleeping on a mat at a nearby buka, eating small, waiting. When Emeka came to tell her that the Oga himself was asking her to come inside, she picked up her raffia bag, smoothed down her wrapper, and walked back to the gate without hurrying. Chief Oluwaseun met her at the entrance himself. This man that Lagos knew as powerful and untouchable stood at his own gate and bowed his head to an old village woman in a faded Ankara wrapper. "Mama Lolo," he said, "thank you for keeping her alive, for keeping her whole, for giving her everything I did not know she needed." Lolo looked at him for a long time. Then she reached up and placed both hands on his face the way she had always done to Adana, copying it, reading it. "She was never yours to lose," Lolo said quietly. "She was always coming back to you. I was just keeping her warm until she did." He could not speak. He nodded once and stepped aside to let her in. Adana was standing in the courtyard. When Lolo saw her, really saw her, standing tall and unhunched for the first time in this house that tried to make her small, the old woman stopped walking. Her hand went to her mouth. Adana crossed the courtyard in 6 steps and walked into her arms. They held each other in the middle of that compound that had been a place of silence and cold food and invisible suffering, and they held each other like the world owed them this exact moment, like every early morning and every burnt cheek and every meal eaten standing at a sink had been a debt, and this was the repayment arriving all at once. "You said my time was coming," Adana whispered into her grandmother's neck. "And did it not come?" Lolo pulled back and looked at her face, smiling now, fully, the smile of a woman who had bet everything on a truth she could not prove and won. That evening, Chief Oluwaseun set the dining table himself. 3 plates, 3 chairs, a proper meal, pepper soup, jollof rice, sweet plantain, still steaming, served hot, in the good plates that were never for contamination but for family. He called Adana and Lolo in together. Adana stood at the entrance to the dining room and looked at the table. This table she had served at every day for 14 months. This table she had wiped and polished and arranged and never once sat at. She stood there for just a moment, enough time to feel the full weight of what had changed, and then she walked in and sat down. Her father pulled out her chair. Lolo sat across from her, back straight, eyes shining, hands folded on the table like she had been dining in fine houses her entire life, because dignity, she had always known, was never about the table. It was about the person sitting at it. They ate together, slowly, talking a little, then more. Chief asked Lolo about the village, about Adana as a child, about every year he had missed, and Lolo told him, generously, without bitterness, as though she understood that grief and guilt were already doing their work on him, and she did not need to add to it. Adana said little. She was busy feeling something she had almost forgotten the shape of, being full. Not just the food, although the food was warm and good and eaten from a proper plate at a proper table, but full in the way that Lolo had always tried to give her, even from the smallest pot. Seen, chosen, first. Her grandmother had always told her she would eat first. She just hadn't known the meal being prepared for her was this big. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe so you never miss a story. Drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We read every single one. See you in the next story.